All right, some Power 5 predictions. Now, this is always a fun exercise, but injuries happen. Things may change, right? But you got to predict who's going to win each conference. That's just kind of what comes with talking into a microphone about college football all the time. Ted, it's just something we have to do.
Something we have to do. It's fun. Yeah, and not always, but well, I'll say this. There's going to be a couple of huge surprises in college football this year, and I don't know what they are, but there's going to be some. That's the great thing about college football is, right whenever you think that everything is decided and everyone knows what's going to happen, TCU comes from nowhere and goes and plays in a national championship game, right? Which zero people would have predicted before last year. So stuff like that happens. That's why the sport's so fun. But you're right. We got to do it. Let's get it on.
All right, let's start with the Big 12 Conference. Who you got?
I think there's two ways to look at it. The most consistent pick, like the most straightforward pick, you got to go with Kansas State. They won it last year. They return a full offensive line. If you get the Will Howard that they had towards the end of last year, you're going to have a very, very tough, smart, all around good football team at Kansas State, and consistency is what matters. Here's the problem. I think this is going to be one of those years, and we've seen this in the past, where everything runs through the quarterback at Kansas State, and that's Will Howard. But that leaves you prone to injury, right? And it feels like so often Kansas State's quarterbacks have been nagged by something that you're not getting their full potential out there. I think that's the danger with them if they lose Will Howard. I think the next pick for me in the Big 12 is it's got to be Oklahoma. I think with what you're getting at Dylan Gabriel, what we're getting defensively, what our overall roster looks like, I think Oklahoma is, you got 1A for me with Kansas State and 1B with Oklahoma. And I think that's going to be your Big 12 championship game.
Yeah, I've got Kansas
and we'll
State
see who's
as well.
in the best spot at that point.
Yeah, I've got Kansas State as well. I'm just a big believer in what Chris Kleiman has built there. They got to replace some fantastic players, right, in Deuce Vaughn and Felix Anudike-Uzomah, but I am heavily influenced by the fact that they've got 4 starting offensive linemen back. Will Howard has some serious confidence now, and I'm not sure who the playmakers are going to be for him at wide receiver. Ben Sinnott, the tight end, is back. I know he's going to make plays, but I do think Colin Klein is going to continue to open this offense up a little more with his play calling, and they found a defensive system that works well for them. I really like the inside backer combo of Austin Moore and Daniel Green. And I feel like I trust Kansas State the most going into the season. Right now, clearly, I want to see OU getting back to playing the type of football that we're used to seeing the Sooners play. I don't trust Texas. I'm with you. I trust OU more to get to that point. Just with the Longhorns, I need to see more from Quinn Ewers before I buy into the hype with that whole situation. There's no doubt they're a talented team, but my head is telling me Kansas State. Obviously, my heart is telling me OU because I believe in BV, and the team is better, and the schedule's very favorable, but I'm going to need to see improvement from Oklahoma. So I'm going to take Kansas State because I'm just giving them the benefit of the doubt. I feel like I know what I'm going to get from that team.
And I agree with that. And that's the one thing I feel like a lot of more of the national pundits are forgetting about the Big 12 this year, because for the last decade, it's been a round robin format where you play every single team in the conference. That's not the case anymore. This is the first year in a long time where schedules matter. And I know everyone loves Texas this season, in whatever that whatever you think about their talent and their overall potential, that's fine. They have a far more difficult schedule than Oklahoma has, and even Kansas State. They've got one of the more difficult schedules in the conference. So I think that's one of the big reasons to not have them as your Big 12 champion.
Yeah, and it's Texas,
and it's Texas.
Have one double-digit win season in the last 13 seasons, and Steve Sarkisian has never won 10 games as a head coach. So they're going to have to show me. All right, moving on to the SEC. Who you got?
I'm taking Alabama. I know everyone is on the Georgia train, and I get that.
A lot of people on the LSU train too.
LSU. My 1A for SEC is Alabama. I think the Alabama can't find a quarterback is like, I don't know if Nick Saban planted this story. I don't know what's going on with it. And maybe, yes, he's brought some of that on by the way that he's spoken about the position battle. But I feel like Alabama's about to unleash hell on everyone at quarterback. With I think it's going to be Milroe. I don't know what the latest is out of there, but when we were just talking about freaks, Milroe makes the freak list. He's like 6'2", 6'3", 235, 240-pound, absolute athlete at quarterback, and I think he's going to have a great year. My 1B for the SEC, Tennessee.
Ooh.
I think Tennessee has the right momentum behind the program, and I know that quarterback is going to be the biggest swing position for them. And here's the big question. Joe Milton hasn't thrown an interception in their entire training camp per their head coach, Josh Heupel, which I think is a great sign. That obviously means 0 heading into the season, but I mean, I think for him, it shows that he's consistent. He's being a good decision maker with the football. If they get Orange Bowl Joe Milton, they're going to win the SEC East. If they don't, if they get previous Joe Milton, who's kind of lost out there, has some like explosive potential in parts, but struggles in the decision-making part of things, can't run an offense for an entire game, then they're not winning it. They're probably not going to get close to winning it. But Alabama's my first pick. Tennessee's my second.
I've got Alabama. I've got Alabama beating Georgia in the SEC championship game. I know, really going out on the limb here, but I'm a believer in Tommy Rees and what that offense is going to look like, right? I think that he is whoever they play at quarterback, and maybe they end up playing multiple guys, but I think they're going to get back to a little more run game, a little more true play action, a little less RPO than what we've seen from them over the last couple of years. And I think the offense is going to be humming. I'm not worried about it. I know there's some question marks of, hey, do they have big time playmakers at the wide receiver position? But I think they're going to be fine. I think they've got elite players at every level of their defense. They've got to go to A&M, but they get Tennessee and LSU in Tuscaloosa. I just think it lines up well for them. And you've got an entire locker room of guys that went to Bama never thinking they weren't going to be the biggest show in college football. And Georgia has taken the spotlight from them.
Yeah.
And taken the crown from them. And I don't know how that locker room responds to that, but I got to imagine Saban is leaning into that. As far as Georgia, just ridiculously talented. Really, the only reason I'm not picking Georgia, yeah, there's the quarterback situation, but, and Carson Beck was named the starter over the weekend, just like we thought he was going to be, but it's just really hard to win the SEC 3 years in a row.
Yep.
So maybe it is the quarterback thing that's holding me back on Georgia and giving me some hesitation, but I've got Alabama mainly because they get LSU and Tennessee at home. Like
Yeah.
I think that's huge for them this season. So Crimson Tide for me.
Yeah. Georgia is I Georgia by no means is going to be a bad football team this year. They're not. But I just think that they've been on such a high. I think it's going to be a little bit of a down year. That doesn't mean they're going to be right there at the top, and it's going to be ultra competitive. I mean, that Georgia Tennessee game may decide who comes out of the East with it. We'll see. I think that, and I know the Beck kid is supposed to be incredibly talented and is going to be a great player. I'm not. Georgia doesn't have a history of being able to replace quarterback, and I just don't think it's as easy as the next guy up. We'll see. I could be totally wrong on that.
Yeah, the schedule is what it is for Georgia, but I think they're going to be a really good football team. I just think
the schedule for Georgia, it's easy. Like it's SEC easy, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
I think that's a bad thing for them, not a good thing.
I think they've managed it the last couple of years. It's been just fine. Yeah. So
just march right through it. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a good chance that they just plow everyone and it's not even close.
Yeah. So we'll see. But yeah, I don't think Georgia's going to struggle. I don't think there's going to be some big drop off there in Athens with the way they've been pooling talent. Okay, the Big Ten Conference. Anyone but Michigan? What do you think?
Michigan's the number one pick.
No doubt.
They finally, it feels like, gotten over the hump, and like they were right there for so long, but just couldn't get past Ohio State. And now that they have 2 years in a row, it's like finally the dark cloud isn't like following them around everywhere that they go. And I think it suits them well. I think some confidence with Michigan is going to go a really long way. And it's kind of funny to see the Ohio State fan base kind of lose it a little bit. Should we fire Ryan Day, who's lost like 3 regular season games since he's been head coach or something crazy? It's like it's Michigan's in a good spot. They've messed with Ohio State's head right now. It's hard to see anyone else winning it. Penn State still going to be really good running the ball. You got to watch out for them. Division wise in the Big Ten is something crazy. You never know what the West is going to look like and who could come out of there. I don't see anyone dangerous enough to be able to knock off Ohio State, Michigan, or even if it was Penn State to come from that side. I think those are the 3 strongest teams by some margin. I'll take Michigan.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think you can take anyone other than Michigan at this point. Now, you look at the schedule for them. They've got to go to Michigan State. They got to go to Penn State, but they get the Buckeyes in the game there at the end of the season. They get them in Ann Arbor. It's got a lot of playmakers on both sides of the ball. I expect J.J. McCarthy to be even better this year. Corum and Edwards may be the best 1-2 duo at running back in the entire country. They're always good at the line of scrimmage. And you mentioned it, they got a mental edge over Ohio State right now. That matters.
It does.
They walk in that building every single day thinking we are better than Ohio State. And the last 2 seasons, they absolutely have been. Right? They beat the hell out of them.
And it matters whenever 2 teams walk on the field and one of them says, this is going to be the coolest day ever. And the other one is saying, oh my God, we can't lose again. Like that,
right.
That matters for football. And especially whenever they're going on the road right now, Ohio State, they're not going to get the momentum of the crowd behind them when they make big plays. Like that's going to be a fun one to watch.
Yeah, as far as Penn State, a lot of Penn State believers out there. And I don't know if you looked at Bruce Feldman's freak list this year. There was a ridiculous number of Penn State guys on there.
Yeah.
They got some creatures on that team. But it's just simple for me, man. James Franklin has not been good against Ohio State and against Michigan.
Well, I would say like their biggest issue has been they haven't, like, in order to go do anything in college football this day and age, you have to have an elite quarterback, and they haven't been there. They just haven't. I feel like that's ultimately what has held Michigan back. I think Michigan has had, an elite football team minus an elite quarterback, right? And
yeah, I would, and I don't think you need like a first round draft pick. Just look at what Stetson Bennett has done the last couple of years. But you got to have a playmaker.
Yeah.
Right. He maybe doesn't need to be 6'4" and 230 pounds and like a prototype looking guy, but he's got to be a playmaker.
Yeah.
And we'll see what Drew
like,
Allard looks like for Penn State, right?
Exactly. They haven't had anyone that play like Stetson Bennett. Whenever they needed him to play, he made some incredible plays. And
right.
There hasn't been anyone at Penn State that's done stuff like that, or Michigan, frankly, in a long time.
Well, I think JJ McCarthy is going to be, I think
he should take
he showed
step.
glimpses of it a year ago.
I agree.
I think he's going to be pretty special this season. But yeah, the only other team in the Big Ten that interests me is Wisconsin. I'm starting to really like them to come out of the West. I can't wait to watch that offense, especially everyone's like, oh, Phil Longo, they're going to play with more tempo. They're going to spread things out, throw it around a little more. And in my head, I'm like, no, they're going to spread teams out and then hand it to that mutant Braylon Allen in the run game. Like, that's what they're going to do. They're going to try to find ways to get lighter boxes for him and then just run the absolute hell out of the ball.
Yeah, I agree. And the other thing is, like, they've had really good defenses at Wisconsin, and with Fickle there, you expect that to just continue to roll. There may be some growing pains installing a new system, but I think they'll still be good defensively. Tanner Mordecai is about to become a household name. And for us, it's like he already is. No, he is for us. He was at OU and he went to SMU, and, people may recall the name because on Sports Center pretty constantly is like Mordecai throws for 380 for SMU this week, and it's just boom, boom, boom for him. But it's going to be a great kind of contrast between Mordecai being an air raid quarterback and playing that system, and then being able to move it around the field, and then having, an awesome offensive line and maybe the best running back in the country on the interior. That, if they can get it to work in 1 year, they could be a dangerous football team.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they're one of the most interesting teams in the country, right? Because you and I, we're both Luke Fickell fans, right? So I'm interested to see what it looks like for them. I feel confident they're going to play defense at a high level. That's kind of their thing.
Mm-hmm.
If that offense can be a little more explosive, a little more creative, then watch out. Watch out for the Badgers. Moving on to the ACC. Who you got?
I mean, the ACC
seems like a 2-horse race, right?
Florida State and Clemson. This is a hard one for me because I think Florida State is a tad overrated. And I think Clemson, there's more questions there than maybe people are throwing their way. I'm going to take Clemson to win the ACC, but I don't feel great about it. We've got a small track record with Garrett Riley as offensive coordinator, and we've got even less of a track record with Klubnik at quarterback. And maybe the two can combine and find some magic like Garrett Riley found last year with Max Duggan, because Max Duggan had kind of been a guy that, he's got a lot of upside, but we kind of know what we're going to get from him. And found a magical year. If they can do that with Klubnik, then they're going to be a dangerous team who's got a chance in the college football playoff. But if Klubnik's not the guy, and I just don't know who the stars are at the skill positions for Clemson. We know Florida State has them. I'm leaning Clemson only because of track record in history.
I am leaning Clemson. I'm taking Clemson, and it's this simple. Florida State and Clemson are playing, and that game is in Clemson, South Carolina. That's it. That's why I'm taking them, right? The Tigers get it at home. So it is interesting, right? They're coming off a down year where they checks notes, went 11-3 and won the ACC. It feels very, very similar to the run that OU had through the Big 12, right? With the six straight. Just like, oh, wait, no, they were actually a pretty solid football team a year ago. And, I was heavily influenced when I was thinking about who I was going to pick. I was heavily influenced with how OU played Florida State in the bowl game. I don't think Florida State, I don't think they have as much depth as Clemson has. Like, I think some people have forgotten just how well Clemson has recruited over the last, 8 years, and just how much talent is up and down that roster. I think the defense is going to be really good, right? They got a lot of playmakers on that defense, and I think Garrett Riley is going to get the most out of Cade Klubnik. Now, we'll see, like you mentioned, what playmakers emerge, but the run game's going to be good, right? I feel good about that, and I don't know. I just trust Clemson more, and they get Florida State at home. That's kind of where I'm at with it.
I think maybe Florida State. I don't know necessarily if they have a higher ceiling. I guess if everything goes right and they stay healthy and everything comes together for Florida State with some of the star power that they have, they could be one of the best teams in college football. But I'm hesitant to believe that everything's going to come together the way that a lot of people are predicting it will.
I'm with you. Yeah. But they play early. I think that game's like week 4. So we'll know who has the upper hand pretty early there in the ACC. All right, last one. The Pac-12. The last year of the Pac-12, and I think it's going to be awesome. When I was going through this exercise, Ted, this was the conference where I felt I could legitimately see 3 or 4 different teams winning the thing. Now, I maybe had that thought about the Big 12 as well, right? Especially with what we saw from TCU a year ago. But yeah, I think the Pac-12 is the most intriguing conference in college football as we head into the season.
Totally agree. From the teams at the top, the worst team in the Pac-12 is going to get more attention than most teams in college football this year, right? And it's going to start right out of the gate with them. Talking about Colorado for obvious reasons, but you got to, like, I don't know, if everything went right for guys that could be a Heisman Trophy candidate, as quarterback. Oregon's got one, Washington's got one, Southern Cal has one, Utah has one. It's going to be a fun season, especially the final 6 weeks of that Pac-12 schedule is going to be crazy. I'm taking Utah to win it.
Ooh.
Until someone else proves that they can stay consistent. I think Oregon is like the easy pick to win this, and I think maybe the more logical pick, but I still have yet to see Oregon put it all together. And they've done it in flashes. Can they put it all together for an entire season? Like, Bo Nix had an incredible year last year, but without him, they become very beatable very quickly, and he runs the ball a ton, and he's open to injury pretty easily. And I know you can say the same thing about Cam Rising at Utah, but they found a way to do it. I love Cam Rising. I think he's a college football quarterback, man. That dude's awesome. USC, I think they're going to get a ton of praise in the first half of the year. They're probably going to kill everyone on their schedule. but their final 6 weeks of the season is brutal, one after another, and a couple of big ones on the road. So give me Utah and Oregon in the championship game.
The only reason I'm not picking Utah is Cam Rising's knee. Like, how does that ACL injury affect the way that he plays? Because I think one of the reasons why we love the guy so much is all of a sudden he's not afraid at all to turn into a battering ram if he has to.
Yep.
And go get those tough yards that extend drives and ultimately results in points. Like, how much hesitation is there because of the knee injury? It does not sound overly optimistic that he's going to be ready for the opener. Now, I'm not betting against that guy playing against Florida. I mean, just with the type of guy that he is, the way that he seems he's wired. But I am hesitant because of the knee situation. Yeah. So I'm taking Oregon. And I think Bo Nix is going to have a massive year. I think he's going to be smarter. I think he's going to protect himself a little more, right? He's got a great understanding of how important he is to that football team. Now, the pieces, they've got an interesting situation in offensive line, right? Blending some transfers. Like, we'll see if those pieces all come together. They need to, or else they're just not going to be able to get it done. But Bucky Irving, I really like it. Running back, I think the offense is going to be good, even though they lost Dillingham, right? Taking the head job at Arizona State. The real improvement I'm expecting to see is on the defensive side of the ball, right? Dan Lanning knows a lot about defense. Mm-hmm. They've got some talented players, right? They've brought in some talented transfers.
He took over a good roster too.
And took over, yeah, really talented roster. And I think there's going to be a year 2 jump. Now, they got some tough road trips, man. Washington and Utah, but they get USC at home. They get Oregon State at home. And I believe in Oregon the most. Maybe it's the OU bias, right, that is not letting me pick USC, right? Because they are the favorite when you look at betting lines. Like, USC's the favorite. But that schedule is brutal, man.
Yeah, they shouldn't be the favorite. I get why they are, but they shouldn't. I was just pulling up the schedule for Oregon. We're going to find out with them really quick. We're going to find out a couple of things because a lot of people think Texas Tech's going to be really good this year, and Oregon's going to Lubbock second week of the season. Like, that's an interesting football game. I'm excited about that one. I think Oregon. I'm picking Utah to win it, but I think because of like balance on the roster, star power at quarterback, I think Oregon has the highest ceiling of any team in the Pac-12. Like, if it comes together for them and they get that year 2 bounce, the defense starts to play the way you would expect a Dan Lanning defense to play. Oregon's got the most potential to be like a college football playoff team that could do some damage.
Yeah. Now, let's make it clear. USC, they've got the best player in college football on their team, right? They are – Lincoln Riley is one of the best play callers in all of football. They're going to score a ton of points. But I don't trust the defense, right? And the schedule is brutal. Their bye comes in week 4, September 16th. Then they got to play 9 in a row, and you mentioned their last 6. At Notre Dame, they host Utah. They go to Cal. They host Washington. They go to Oregon. And then they've got UCLA in the Coliseum to finish the season off. That's just a gauntlet, man. It's hard to get through all of that, unscathed or relatively unscathed. I think they're going to have a better football team and a worse record.
Yep. That's where I've been for a long time with them. Exactly. Yeah. There.
So
now Caleb Williams is going to be fun to watch. He's going to be incredible. He was fun to watch last year. And I think it's going to unfortunately be kind of the same thing for them this year, where he's going to have to run around and make a bunch of like ridiculous things happen in order to win these tight games, and you can only live like that for so long. So I don't know. They've got one of the most exciting young players in college football defensively. I can't wait to watch Tackett Curtis playing Mike linebacker. That kid is going to be an incredible football player, and looks like he's going to be a starter as a true freshman for them. So awesome.
Yeah. Pac-12 is going to be fun, man.
Yep.